Are we okay to start?
Yes, do you want to kick it off?
They're still playing around with the camera.
Yeah. Yes. Too much conversation.
Yeah, that's good enough. This is the fun, isn't it? Playing with technology. Great. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Cool. I love that it's a full house already. So that's great. So let's start with welcoming everyone. I can see a few faces in the front, but I'm sure I'll see a lot of pictures later on. So hello guys, welcome to this WOD session in partner with Human Scale. Thank you for taking time out to be with us tonight. But it's lovely to see people getting together in a live in-person event. We were getting really tired with all the webinars and the hybrid events. So even though this is still a hybrid event, right? So I wish I was there with you guys, but thank you. Lovely to see you all. Let me start with introducing myself because I know there are a lot of new faces there. Hi, I am Harsha Kotak. I am the founder of WOD, Women in Office Design, and I'm also a designer practicing, based in London, UK. Before I say more about WOD and we start this evening, I would just like to take a few minutes to thank everyone there, especially our partners. Thank you, Satish at SQ Ergonomics for hosting us tonight, and the whole team at Human Scale and SQ, Vijay, Dinesh, everyone. Thank you for doing such a brilliant job of arranging everything. And then, of course, a special thank you to our speakers for tonight. We've got Sujata from Knight Frank in Bangalore. Thank you, Sujata, for taking time out for us tonight. And also we've got Juliet from Inspired Ergonomics here in UK, even though she's based out of Italy right now. So she's joining us from there. So yes, this is truly a global event tonight. So thank you guys for taking time out. And of course, a big thank you to my partner in crime, as I say always, Payal. Thank you for arranging everything and looking after WOD in India. I think you're doing a brilliant job. So guys, if you have any questions, need anything with WOD, please contact Payal. And then we also have another ambassador tonight with us, Fancy. Fancy George, thank you for being with us. And thank you for always supporting us, Fancy. So lovely to see you tonight. Let's get on with introducing you all to WOD. I'm just going to quickly share my screen here. Right up. Right, so WOD, it's, as the name says, it's a global learning and networking platform for women in office design industry. And I started this organization in 2018 more as a personal agenda. I've been in the industry for about 25 years now. So I just wanted to bring my women friends from around the globe together onto a platform. And also I wanted to go out and meet other designers and architects, and that's the basis of this. So it started as a small group on LinkedIn in 2018. But since then, it has grown. It has gone crazy a bit, I would say. We are about 2,000 plus architects, members today. And we've got chapters in UK, in Europe, and in India now. We are launching one in Italy next month with an event in Milan. So yes, growing really well. We basically a platform to share knowledge and meet other like-minded women, right? So we do a lot of live events like we're doing tonight. That's what we did before the pandemic hit us all. And then we moved on to digital events more and more. But we hope to get more of these live events moving now in all countries that we are present in. So after tonight's event, we have one in Ahmedabad next month with Steel Case. And then we've got one in Hyderabad after that. So we're doing a lot more of live events. So keep an eye out, guys. But it's basically a community where you come and meet others. We've got a lot of thought leaders from around the world who come and speak at our events, like we've got tonight. We've had Kay Sargent from HOK and Neil Usher here from UK, and a lot of Spanish architects who've spoken at our events as well. So it's a fun platform as well. We do a lot of fun events like we're doing tonight, where you have games and cocktails and a bit of fun. And so I think that helps in the whole learning and networking. We also host events at a lot of festivals like the London Design Festival. We hosted at the Valencia Fair, the Barcelona Design Museum. We're hosting one next month here in London, which is the Clerkenwell Open Festival. So yeah, a mixed bag, and you can pick what you want, right? As I said, we hosted, launched in India in December with two beautiful hybrid events, one in Bangalore and one in Mumbai. We had one last month at Pune in Bangalore as well. So guys, all I would say is come join us. We've also got this beautiful digital community, which is an online app. So you can be a member for free. Just come join us and you can meet other like-minded women from around the world. We've got members from Australia, Canada, Dubai, you name it, and you'll find them there. So a good place to come and connect with everyone, a good place to raise your profile, showcase the work that you're doing. That's what this platform is for. So guys, that's our website. Feel free to drop us a line if you would like, or anytime speak to Pyle or myself or Fancy, and we can tell you more about it. So join in, guys. That's about WOD. And I'm going to stop sharing screen and hand it over to Pyle.
Thank you, Harsha. Welcome, everyone. So good to see everyone in person after this face-to-face event in India. I'm so excited. I'd like to introduce the two speakers that we have, Juliet and Sujata. We'll go with Juliet, who's going to do a presentation first, who's also been waiting patiently. Thank you, Juliet. Juliet Rain is a highly specialized physiotherapist and ergonomics consultant. She combines her medical background together with her expertise in ergonomics and deep knowledge of movement and exercise to help companies and individuals treat and prevent injuries. She's a qualified physiotherapist and a master's in health ergonomics. There are a whole lot of alphabets that I don't understand, Juliet, so you'll have to explain it to us. You're also a member of ACPOHE, and you're a small team of specialist physiotherapists who deliver DSC assessment training to physiotherapists. So I'm going to let you speak a little bit more about yourself and explain about yourself a little better when you start your section. On to Sujata Ganpati, who we have here from Bangalore. She has 25 years plus of leadership experience in real estate and facility operations, energy management, sustainability, green building certification, and well building standards. She's a postgraduate in electrical engineering, and she's trained for energy management. In her present role with Knight Frank India, she leads the sustainability service line and works with clients in setting up sustainability programs for both greenfield and brownfield projects. Again, Sujata, if I've missed something, please pick it up when you start. So we're good for you, Juliet, now. You're on mute, Juliet, or we can't hear you.
Okay, so hopefully you can hear me, can you? Yeah, I've got no idea how big or small I am, so just hopefully you can see me and my presentation. Thank you very much for the introduction. All of my letters, there's a group called ACPHOE, A-C-P-H-O-E in the UK, which is the Association of Chartered Physiotherapists in Occupational Health and Ergonomics. And I'm one of their principal trainers, so I'm responsible for training physiotherapists in ergonomics consultancy in the UK. So that's what all of those little letters mean. What we were hoping to do today, I mean, I could talk about ergonomics and design and all sorts of things for hours and hours, and I'm sure as many of you could as well. I want to try and just do a very quick nod to, you know, what has been happening in the last 18 months and what we feel might be happening as time goes on, and just try and get you guys hopefully thinking of things in a slightly different way when you're looking at your design projects. So we're going to look at, as I say, the last 18 months. We're going to try and think about, you know, why it's so important now more than ever to really have a joined up approach about how we approach design in the office. Look at what we think might happen in the future, and I'm sure everybody's really got a keen eye on that at the moment to try and work out where this is all going to go, and explore about how ergonomics can really help avoid the costly mistakes. Okay, how we can get the design right the first time, and why we think it's essential to make sure that we are educating the people who are using the offices that you design, using them as they should be using them, to make sure that they truly are looking after their health and well-being as best as they possibly can. So Nicola Adams is our founder. She herself is an ergonomist and a designer. She's designed a range of seating, which came about after requests from physiotherapists like myself to fill a gap in the market to look after back health. And she's really focused her approach on preventing pain in the workplace. So she's really highly specialised in back pain, in neck pain, in all sorts of repetitive injuries that you would get. And she offers, through Inspired Ergonomics, now a global reaching service. So we offer remote consultancy, which we've actually been doing since back in 2017, so before the pandemic came about, just to make sure that we can get everybody working in the best possible way and give them the advice and the equipment that they need to work healthily. And obviously we've been very busy in the last 18 months working with people who are working at home rather than the office, which has its own challenges. As well as the remote stuff, we do in-person stuff, the majority of which is in the UK. And we have a sort of a unique formulation for our team. Every team member is either a fully qualified ergonomist, a fully qualified health professional, or both. So we work with nutritionists, we work with psychologists, we have ergonomics professionals and physiotherapists like myself as well. So, you know, we hope that we offer a sort of 360-degree approach to people's health and well-being when we're doing our assessments. The assessments that we do, they're not just desk-based assessments, we offer ergonomic needs assessments as well, and that's something I'm going to talk a little bit more about a bit later, because that might be something that you guys maybe haven't heard about, or maybe you have and you've had some success with in the past when you have collaborated with ergonomists like ourselves. And our real focus is on education, because we all know there isn't a perfect posture. There isn't one behaviour that will stop people from getting injured. It really depends on how people are using space, how much they're moving, how much they're adjusting their posture through the day. We don't want people to stay still. So our approach is very heavy on the educational aspect to make sure that we avoid these sort of costly mistakes that we get when people are just sitting badly and sitting for too long. So we're all aware the world has changed a lot in the last 18 months, and we think that the changes are permanent. We don't believe that anybody's going to go back 100% to how they were before. You know, it's unlikely that, you know, home working will just completely disappear. It's most likely that people are going to be doing a very hybrid approach, and I'm sure all of you guys are sort of preparing for that and how to get people back in the office. We know that there's significantly reduced travel. I mean, this was very rare in the past to be able to connect from around the world, which is wonderful. And that's thanks to a lot of the technological advances that we've seen that have really come into play over the last 18 months. And the ability for people to do smart working, so the use of laptops and portable devices to be able to be connected wherever they are. That has obviously come with a lot of challenges, and what we are seeing now is a huge increase worldwide in musculoskeletal problems and mental health issues directly related to what has been happening in the last 18 months. You know, people who've been working from home forever thinking it was going to be temporary, so maybe not investing in the equipment that they need, or their employers not investing in the equipment they needed at home. And that has built up over the last 18 months, whereas now that a lot of people have got some real back issues, some real neck issues that, you know, maybe we weren't dealing with before. And that's something that we're quite worried about. And we're hoping that as people start to come into their permanent way of working, in whatever form that is, the employers are going to start looking after their employees really well. And that's where you guys really come in, because we believe that a lot of spaces need to be redesigned to accommodate this new way of working, so that we can get rid of some of these painful problems people have been suffering with, but also to prevent issues for the future as well. So what do we think the workplace is going to look like in the future? As I say, we're pretty sure that it's going to be a hybrid form of working, so a bit of home working and a bit of office working. We are very aware, and a lot of you guys will probably be much better informed than I will, that we're going to have to be very careful with infection control methods as well. You know, in the last 15 years, we've had a big cycle of office design, haven't we, where we've gone from kind of pods through to, you know, individual offices, through to kind of more open plan with pods and little spaces, to what I've seen in the last few years has been very much more completely open plan, no barriers, no sort of things dividing things up in a lot of office spaces. And so we're going to have to almost go back a little bit potentially to make sure that we maybe incorporate some kind of physical barriers for infection control purposes rather than from noise control purposes, looking at airflow and distancing and everything else that we have to bear in mind. So that's a challenge that obviously is going to come into play when you guys are putting pen to paper. We also need to be very aware of how people are working from home. I'm not going to focus on that today because I want to focus on the office, but there's some really exciting possibilities of, you know, creating mini offices at home for people, and that becoming something that people do, little pods or something to be working from home, which would be great. We're very aware that even though we've been hot desking for a while, we've been agile working for a while, that's going to become much more important. So being able to share spaces effectively and not have one desk that's blocked for one person and nobody else ever works on that space. I think those days pretty much have gone, but that we'll talk in a moment. We need to support that properly if we can. And obviously there's a huge potential for cost savings for a business. If they don't need as much office space, they can reduce their footprint and they can save potentially a lot of money, whilst keeping people fit and healthy. So what are the risks? Things that I just want to highlight very quickly. We need to be very aware that within any office space, it's highly likely that there are people who have specialist needs. Now, I'm not just talking about people who have a registered disability, okay? I'm talking about all of these hundreds of thousands of people who've been working from home who have developed, you know, repetitive strain injury, carpal tunnel syndrome, neck problems, back problems, knee problems, whatever it is, as a direct result of the way that they've been working. Now, a lot of those people have now been given a specialist DSE assessment in their home. And those assessments have said, okay, you must have a desk at a certain height, you maybe need to sit stand, you maybe need to have a particular type of adjustability to your chair. And we need to make sure that whatever they have put in place within their home environment can be replicated in the work environment without it necessarily costing the company a lot to put in a specific desk for that person. So that's where adjustability, hopefully, can come into play. So yeah, we need to be aware of the adaptations that people may be having. We're going to be hopefully getting rid of these previously allocated desks. So that for a lot of people will feel like a big risk to them. You know, there's a lot of people very fearful of going back into the office, not just because of the virus, but because they're aware they may well have lost their dedicated space. And mentally, that's very difficult for people to adjust to if they've been very used to having their protected space, nobody fiddling with it. They don't have to worry about it. It's just their setup. But we can turn that on its head. There's a real positive behind there as well, which I'll talk about in a moment. So we need to be careful that when we're designing, we've got enough storage space, because we think that because of infection control measures, it's very likely that every individual will probably have to have their own keyboard and mouse stored within the building or carried to and from the building every day. So those sort of little locker spaces are absolutely invaluable. And obviously we need to prove to the employer when they're looking at the redesign why we need to protect those spaces, why they can't just design those out and put in more desks. You know, we need to protect those spaces if we possibly can, or look at clever ways to provide storage. You know, that's where you guys come into your element, I think. We also need to be aware that if they don't have storage, they will have to travel with those items. And I don't know how many of you guys have tried to travel with a keyboard, a mouse, a laptop stand and a laptop and all the charging cables and maybe a headset and whatever else you need to be able to do your work effectively. That really adds up, and it can be quite difficult for people to be doing that on a regular basis if they're not just, you know, driving to work. For example, if they're having to commute on public transport, that could be a real problem. Tied in with all of that, we focus also on people's knowledge. You know, we need people to really put their own health at the forefront of what they're doing. You know, we need to give people the responsibility so that when they come into the office that you guys provide for them, they know how to use those spaces. And that's where education is absolutely fundamental. When businesses are moving into a space or returning to a space, we need to encourage them to put in some kind of education to inform them how to use the spaces. We do things like drop-in days where we'll be on site and help people kind of as they're getting into the spaces, adjust things, teach them in little drop-in centres, things like that, to make sure that they're using the design correctly. And it's so important, it's so successful as well. And that can be done remotely as well if needs be. So how are we going to achieve it? How are we going to get people comfortable and feeling happy in their new workspaces? We think that when we're looking at redesign, we really need to do a real review of needs. Okay, so a review of needs from an ergonomist point of view. We're often the kind of middleman between the design and the company. This will happen, I'm sure, to every single one of you. You have an amazing design idea, you really want to pitch a great idea with great adjustability, and the client comes back to you and they say, well, that's a great idea, but we want to reduce the cost by 30%. And then you're stuck because you must cut some of the adjustability, or you must cut some of the great design ideas that you have to try and fit into the budget that the client has got in mind. And we don't want that to be the case. You know, we want the design to really suit the environment, to suit what people are doing. But what's really important is that you really understand who are you designing for. So not everybody that works in an office works in the same way. Everybody works in very, very different ways, even if they've got the same jobs. And I spoke to Harsha earlier in the week about sit-stand desks, an experience that she'd had where she'd designed, you know, a wonderful office space, 100% adjust, I think it was 100% adjustable work surfaces, and then was quite disappointed when she went in for a review several months later that actually it didn't appear that anybody was really standing, very few people standing up, but she knew that maybe that could really help a few people. And what I was saying is, well, actually, the adjustability that you can get from sit-stand is fantastic, not just for standing, but allowing people true flexibility to adjust their sitting height to suit them perfectly, so they're not needing footstools, they're not needing things. So you might not see it really obvious that people are using your design, but they may well still be using the design in their way. But also, we don't want people standing for hours and hours on end. We want people to change their posture all of the time. So when you walk into an office for a few minutes, you may not see what you were hoping to see for that reason, because at that particular time, people are not standing. But we do know that you give everybody adjustable equipment and they won't use it unless we give them the education. So what we don't want is your clients to turn around and say, well, you told us to put all of this stuff in and nobody's using it. It's really useful if you've done a review of needs where you can say, look, these are the different heights of all of your different people. We have a very big range of sitting height requirements. We have a range of standing height requirements. This is the kind of tasks that people are doing, and you know, these tasks really suit standing. So creative tasks, collaborative work, and automatic tasks, you know, like when you're filtering your emails and things like that. Those things are brilliant for standing. Focus tasks where you're really having to concentrate, they're not great for standing. Then you're much better to be sitting well on an adjustable ergonomic chair so that you can focus on your task in a really good posture. So we know that depending on what people are doing, they may or may not require a high level of adjustability to allow standing. So if we can really look at what a company needs together, then you can really justify the costs, justify the design, and make sure that that client is getting exactly what they need. And it might be that through your needs assessment, you're like, right, okay, we need a minimum of 20 or 30% full adjustability, and the rest of them we can manage to have either static height desks or small range adjustability desks, which are a little bit cheaper and just allow a change in sit height, which is how a lot of people use these desks, I myself included. So we think that, you know, review of needs when you're doing your design is super important, so you really understand how are people going to use their office space so that you can put the right design in for them. We need to persuade the companies that rather than just closing the door for 2 layers of their office and keeping 2 layers open, they need to redesign that space so it really works for what they need. We need them to have management strategies so that they're booking out workspaces effectively, so teams can still be together to some point. There's collaborative spaces, so important. We're seeing collaborative spaces used not just for creativity as they were originally intended, but really from a well-being point of view. I talk a lot about the menopause and the hormonal changes. Rest spaces and collaborative spaces can often be an absolute amazing escape for somebody who's going through a bit of a hot flush, or somebody who's having a bit of a moment and they just need to kind of get away from the hustle and bustle, or they just need a moment to sort of sit down and relax whilst their heart rate returns to normal, or whatever it is that's going on. And we think that that's going to be super important for long COVID as well. So we're going to have more people coming back into the workspace who have varying needs, and your designs are going to be brilliant for that, because if you protect that collaborative space, it's not just going to be used for collaboration. There's going to be so many other uses, and justifying that to your client will mean that they're going to go, yeah, okay, we get that. We want to do that. We want to look after people, and we're happy to protect that space and not just shove in more desks, which will obviously be their instant, you know, human resources approach. I would always say fully adjustable is the best. If the budget is there, get fully adjustable everything, get the best quality chairs in there that you possibly can do, and then everybody's got that chance to get themselves as comfortable as they can. I'm a big fan of having more than just one chair as well. So if you're designing in an office, either a chair that has different sizes that can be easily identified, or 2 or 3 different types of chair. So, and I know that's not great from a design point of view, but it really helps people get that adjustability and find the fit that works for them. They're the offices I see with the most success. And it just means that those companies don't have to go out and retrofit anything or buy specialist chairs on top of what they've already invested in, because it's already there, which is brilliant. But all of this, the last point there, all of this comes down to education. You've got to educate the end user so that they're really using it properly. They've got to have the responsibility put on them so that they are using your designs to the absolute maximum ability. And then when you do go in and visit those offices, you're going to be super impressed with the way that they're using it and be like, yeah, that's what I wanted. So I think, or we think, it is really, really exciting. I know the last 18 months have been a horrible, horrible time for a lot of people, but now we're seeing the end of it, and I think it is a great opportunity for redesign to make sure that your designs really, really are fit for purpose. We need to make sure that we're really understanding your populations you're designing for. We want to make sure that employees feel really satisfied with their work environment. that their mental health is being protected and their physical health is being protected as well. When you protect those two, we're going to see great reactions for productivity, but also a reduction in absence. So we really get those cost benefits that are kind of hidden when we're looking at the true cost of design. So as I say, save the company potentially a lot of money if we do it right the first time, but that requires collaboration. So it requires you having your go-to ergonomist or go-to somebody so that you can really get your ideas down on paper and then work collaboratively with them and go, right, is this hitting everything? Have we missed anything? You know, is there a specific population within that office that actually requires something different? You know, maybe there's a high level of disability, physical disability, mental disability, and we need to be looking into that as well. Because if we can make sure we design it in, the costs are justifiable and we stop the secondary costs later on when they're trying to fix problems. But as I say, keep talking about it. Education, super, super, super important. And often that's where somebody like ourselves comes in useful, because we can be that middle person between design and the end users that make sure that we're helping you justify things and implementing it properly. So I hope that's started to give you a little bit of a food for thought. So my name is Juliet Rain. You can get me on this email address, and we are on LinkedIn, and we've got our website there as well. I will be hanging around for any questions. If there are any questions that have come up, I'm going to be just answering a little chat at the end. I will be hanging around too. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Juliet. Do we have any questions? It was fascinating, Juliet. So I think maybe we wait for the second speaker's talk, and then we'll see if there are any questions.
Great.
Actually, you're seen on this. You're seen on this. Yes. Can you just switch this on?
Yeah. I was thinking.
It's just still on the goes down, right?
Sorry. Who I I'll keep it.
Asha, are you able to see the screen?
No. Did you share it, Vijay?
Yeah.
If you just go to the green button at the bottom, it says share screen.
Asha, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We go to this. Can you see the screen now, Asha?
Yes, yes.
That's okay. So I will be facing the audience.
Do you want to mic? No, that's auto making. The moment I come here, it will take me.
No, that's okay. I don't. So good evening, everyone.
everyone. And Harsha, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, that's perfect, Sujata.
So I think we've been talking about where people have been practicing well for some time, but I think the minute you talk about green buildings or you talk about where, I think the concentration more is on air, water, and this is what we talk about. Okay, so I have made this presentation specifically to tell you that what could architects look at in well standards. Okay, and many a time that when I consult for companies on well, I hear architects telling me that we're close with the design, we can't change anything much. This is the kind of response you get because they have really not got into the details of seeing how, as an architect, you could play a very important role. Because I think architecture is both art and science, and you could use these two aspects of architecture to really look at how you could play an important role. There are many concepts. I think we all know that there are 10 concepts in well, but what could architects do? There are a number of concepts wherein you can actually contribute. I mean, even if one is not going in for a well certification or anything, it could be practiced by architects because I think architects, whenever you build construct a building or look at a building, you talk about how it actually, it's more psychology, that's how it appeals to the human being around, how it actually shapes the society that we live in. So architects play a really large role in actually helping people live better as it is. So there are some aspects of it in well which has actually been put together which could help people in a built-in environment. So you could look at, you can't see me?
No, you're not able to see you. If you stand there, because we're trying to record this also, and the camera's not capturing you. Yeah, a little more closer to us. Yeah, I think that is okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You can face whichever way, but if you keep your
Okay, that's okay.
radius.
So there are different concepts in which you can actually look at it, and mind is one of the concepts in well, which the architect could actually play around with. So what could you do in this? In the common spaces, what is it that an architect could actually contribute as far as a mind concept is concerned? You would see most employees actually using the common places, right? Spaces which are available. So how could you make it interesting and how it would be good? Just as Juliet spoke about, the well-being of people, how you stand, what you can provide. So what is it that you could provide in a common space? Is it the green spaces that you can provide? What is the kind of seating that you would actually want to provide? I mean, many a time if you see when you have design, I have been a part of organizations where we have built large buildings, and I have seen, yes, the common spaces are so nice, people walk around, and there is a jogging trail, there's a walking trail. But what we have actually forgotten is that the minute I feel thirsty, I don't want to be on the walking trail and there is no water fountain available in that walking track or around the common spaces. And that is one of the requirements of well. So what I'm trying to say to you is that very few points, because I just have 20 minutes to speak to you. So this is one thing that you could actually look at. Of course, you could contact me for other things like how we could input lot many things in common spaces that people just walk away from that place because there's no hydrating station anywhere available in the common spaces where people are walking or they're exercising or somebody is actually, we build very nice cricket pitches. I have done that in my other organizations. We've had a basketball court, but then we don't have a water station anywhere around. It is only when I went through this course of being an accredited professional, I really saw that, and when I see the designs, I really realized that yes, people just walk away. This is something that we could all look at, like how an architect could make it better for the employees or for the occupants of the building. It need not be a corporate building, but it could also be a residential building where you could actually provide for these things. Okay. When you look at nourishment, you might think that what does an architect have to do about it? It is all food and the cafeteria, and what role do I play? I will just give a space. I will ensure that the ratio is 1:4.5, provide the tables, provide the chairs, and I'm done with it. But then you have a lot more to do with this. There are green spaces. You are asked to provide for green spaces. So how much of green space you should provide? How do you provide these green spaces? How does it affect the psychology of the human being who is around that, whether it is a residential project, a corporate project, whatever be it? And how you could actually change the nourishment habits or the eating habits of people. You know, I have seen in organizations where I had a small garden, like Fancy keeps asking me to repeat the story. And then I have seen, you know, we used to have this kids' day arranged in the facility. And there would be parents who would come and tell them, you know, this is how carrot grows. Because people don't know, children don't know. I mean, I have a daughter who's, who's working, but then, you know, when she was small, when I asked her who gives you milk, she told me the milkman gives me milk. Because she only knows that the milkman comes and delivers milk. And I can tell you 20 years hence, 25 years hence that after she is there, I can see that children know who gives you vegetables. It's big basket, I'm sure. I mean, any child would actually, it's easy for the child to say that. But in these kind of green spaces, you are expected as an architect to look at the landscape architecture and actually grow edible fruits, herbs, so that people really know. We are dealing with those children who told, you know, the milkman gives me milk nights. All the children who were born in the 90s or the early 2000s are the ones who are coming into the workspaces. So this is the kind of children, I mean, people who are going to come back to work. I mean, we're going to work. And for those people, you are designing. So I think it is important, and it is a part of WELL which actually says that make sure there is a hydroponic irrigation system. There is kind of herbs. There are fruit bearing, I mean, edible fruits or vegetables being grown, and that is what gets you points. So that is where you could actually contribute. I mean, you might not be getting it WELL certified, but then it would actually make sense for us to include this into your design. So this is, I mean, I have seen in many of, I mean, at least a couple of them where, you know, in the cafeteria, you're able to grow. I mean, I have seen Fancy's status, you know, where she puts up all the kind of plants. And recently in the buyer group, I see a lot of architects putting up a lot of plants in their statuses and all those things. But I think we could actually practice this as community gardening in the workplaces too. So this is something that you could actually look at. You could actually have those herbs which could be used in the cafeteria. You know, I have seen organizations who have a garden, you know, a hanging garden or a vertical garden in their cafeteria spaces, where you can actually take those raw vegetables and you could actually use it. So this is something that you could actually look at, and that would make a difference. And I think if there are any clients around here, I think you should just ask your architect to look at these things. So community, what could you do for community? Community is a concept. Now, you know, like when I have spoken, I'm not saying anything against the architects, but I'm just saying that how we look at projects and how we don't actually give it enough attention to make sure that, you know, that we could all contribute, you know, and right now being in the pandemic and having suffered so much, I think it is good for each one of us, no matter what kind of a job you're doing, whether it is a residential kind of a project or it is a commercial project. You could be an architect, you could be a PMC, or you could be the client. Like, we all have to think how we could actually better our lives in anywhere we're working from. You know, so community is one aspect where, you know, lactation space. You know, I have seen there's now no lactation space actually designed by the architect. You will suddenly find one small corner, the facility manager will be asked to pay to lactation corner, and that place will be done. And there's absolutely no, you know, thought given to what exactly is required by that mother. Because she's a mother first at that point of time. So have we provided a comfortable seating? Is it calm for her to sit down there? I mean, you play with colors, architects play with colors. So you should really look at what could you actually offer to a lactating mother. What should be provided? Should we provide a sink? Should we provide a faucet? How does she do it? I mean, that is something that we should really look at. Should there be a bathroom? Could somebody really go to the bathroom to wash if you're lactating? No, you don't. So what is it that you have to provide for in the lactation room? And, you know, like, how would the chair be designed? I mean, Juliet spoke about ergonomics. So what an architect should actually say or recommend. So this is something that you can look at, and this is something that is there in the WELL standards. Okay. Another thing, like, we don't look at universal washrooms. I mean, we talk about diversity, we talk about inclusion. I have one client who said, who was so shocked when I said that this is a part of WELL standard and we need to have a universal washroom. And then, he was really shaken up when I said that, how can you do it, guys? That was the kind of reaction that I received when I spoke about this feature. So we should look at this. If we are talking about diversity, inclusion, we have to look at it as, whole. It cannot be that we talk something and then when we are actually designing, we really don't look into it. There are organizations which say that you can bring your child to work. I used to take my child to work when my mother passed away because he didn't have anybody to look up to when he came back from school. But then, yes, he was very small. Of course, I never realized that how he went and used the loo. I think that is something that we really have to think, and that is something that the architect can say or the client should demand. Because if that is the policy that I have in my organization, then I really have to look at it, I should have a bigger picture of saying that how would I design this space to actually help. So that is where we look at family washrooms. This could be suggested and the client can take it or leave it. But at least we should have it in our mind that this is something that we can actually look at. And I'm sure these things are going to change, it's not going to be like we never thought we could work from home, but we've all been working from home. Some organizations, forward-looking organizations, let you bring your children to work, some don't, but then you will eventually start doing all of these things, and it is going to change. We talk about American Disability Act accessibility, but how much of it do we really do? How do we really look at it? This will be a last minute inclusion into our design. I'm telling you, 9 times out of the 10 designs that we do, we look at this last. It's an inclusion. It's basically in the big design, this is going to be a retrofit after the design is completed. That's how we are. I think we really need to look at how we could use this.
Sorry, it's such one example of that specific thing. Year before, there was one KS officer who was chairperson for the same office in Bangalore. And their own office did not have a rail separated to it. It became a big issue. Like as you said, similarly, most of them are not. Even yesterday, State Bank of India, quite a lot of chats going on Twitter. They don't have again friendly or they call it.
Yeah, it's not, that's what I'm telling you. See, we talk big, we talk about diversity, we talk about inclusion, then we really have to, as designers, as practitioners, or maintaining of facilities, it might not be there in our existing buildings, but we can definitely look at it, when we refurbish, when we really look at things. We are very happy saving that little bit of energy that we're doing. I'm an energy management person. I started my career with energy management. But I can tell you that it's really not worth it. I'll tell you that story after I finish this presentation. Okay? So emergency preparedness plan. Now you tell me, like when COVID hit us, pandemic, and we were blaming the government. We blame a lot of things happened. But how many of us could actually offer our offices or a place where we could actually help the doctors or the nurses or even our emergency staff we had? In any organization, IT industry, you would want somebody to clean, you would want somebody to look at your data center. But have we made any arrangements for those people? Are our buildings actually designed to actually house these people? No. So we have to look at it. It could be a house, it could be a community, it could be anything, like in the offices. Where do we have these places? So I think as designers, as practitioners, as engineers, I think more so in the years to come, it would be the architects, the engineers, and all of us who would actually be responsible for the kind of health a society is going to be with. The doctors are fighting, but that's not, there's very little they can do. We have to reach the hospital to get their help. But how do we keep ourselves healthy at this point of time? as we live day to day. So this is something that we could actually look at. Movement. You know, we say take the staircase. But what do you see just as I enter an office? I will see the elevator, I will just walk in. Do I have a choice? We say that you should walk, you know, why are you taking the lift elevator for just one floor? But is a ramp available? Is a staircase available? No. Even if there is a staircase available, I think it will be the fire exit, which is the most uninteresting staircase that you can ever have. Okay? And most of the time, if it is multi-tenanted, of course, the developers are improving their common areas. So, you know, like what is said is that when you have a staircase, make it interesting. Have some kind of art. It need not be expensive. It has to be the local art. How many of us, at least in India, we really don't even appreciate the local art that we have. We have so much of color. We have so much of celebrations. We have so much, variety and diversity in our country. But do we use it? As designers, do we use it? As a client, have I ever asked the architect for this? No, I have not. So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that this is what WELL is all about. It is not nothing, no Nobel Prize winning job or a Nobel Prize winning kind of a standard. But what I'm saying is, it is just telling you how you could make life interesting and how you could be happy. And I think a happy employee, every one of us, whoever is happy, even if you have one reportee, you know, you keep him happy, he will do your work well. Productivity increases, and that is what we're all looking at. That's the bottom line. So you could look at water features and artistic installations. You know, I never liked water features in my facility. Any architect telling me we will have a water feature, I would say no. Because for the simple reason that we don't know how to maintain it. We don't have, people. But I think when you actually design this, or when architects say something about this, you should really look at the maintenance part of it. But this is something that actually calms your mind, which makes you feel better, which can, you have this artistic installations. It could be a mural, it could be a sculpture depicting the local art. But we could definitely do something which would actually make people feel better, because scientifically, medically, it has been proven that when you see the nature, it takes you lesser time to get back to the work that you're doing already. The difference is that, like, if you were looking at a concrete building outside your window, and if you had any of this thing, it need not be real. It could in fact be a painting. But if it is something connected to the nature, the human brain actually calms down faster. This is what the study has been. My time is over. Light. Okay, what could you do with light? I mean, I think we have gone through all this energy modeling in LEED and in green buildings, and then after that, draw all the blinds. And you're very happy doing it. So happy doing it. So actually, in WELL, it is said that you need to have a VLT, that is a visual light transparency of about transmission of about 40%. But in India, I'm given to understand, at least until 18 months ago, there was only one company which had the glass, which is 40% VLT, and then there's only one color. So I think architects will be saying, I'm not going to do this. Because you need color, you need something different about it. Of course, it does not, though the standards are made at 40% VLT, in a tropical country like us, we really don't need that much of light. That's a different thing that we could speak to IWBI or to WELL and then find out about it. But how well are we going to do this? What are the different things that you could have? How can you ensure that the employee does not draw the blind? So you have to have those elements on your facade to ensure that the employee doesn't draw the blind. And who can do this better than the architects? It's definitely not the facility guys. It's definitely not the PMC guys. Okay, so this is something that you have to really think to make sure that people spend less on blinds and actually use the sunlight which is coming from outside. So, the indoor light exposure that we are talking about, that is a glare. That is what I'm talking about. How you could ensure that there is not that much glare that people will not draw the blinds. Sound. We are not just bothered. I'm a person who cannot sleep without the fan on. I need that sound going on. It actually puts me to sleep. We're so used to these kind of things. We want the AC, we're not bothered about the humming sound. But let me tell you, when I did this WELL AP course, then I realized that, the traffic sounds that you hear on the road, and if you're continuously hearing this traffic sounds, that the increase of the chances of you getting the stroke increases. And if you are located anywhere near the airport, if you are continuously hearing the aeroplane taking off and landing, you actually have the chances of you getting high blood pressure is higher. So these are some things which we are not bothered about. But as architects, you could actually make it more interesting, because there's so many colors, there's so many different materials available today for you to actually look at it. And actually, WELL standards give you the dB levels that are required for conference rooms, or if it is a loud zone or a quiet zone, somebody wants it. No, we are not bothered. We don't even have a return rate duct in our systems as it is. So that is why we have cold zones, hot zones, we are fighting with that. So facility managers at loggerheads with all employees at all different points of time. Because, as architects, I mean, you have given the space. As far as the architect is concerned, you will give a space to put this up. This is how you can put it. This is how now at least you have the bin, so you really know how the lines are going. Otherwise, if you haven't really checked, then there's a big fight when it is being commissioned or it is being connected. And you're not bothered about the sound. The HVAC guy will come and install it and go, and there's a loud sound, and you're not bothered about it. You're not bothered about the AHU unit being located at a place, and you don't even bother what is the TC level, because that is not being considered even by the Pollution Control Board. You do a better job when you actually are designing the DG center, because it says that you cannot have more than 70 dB. So you really look at it. But how many times have you looked at it when there is equipment sounds? We don't do this. So these are some aspects that actually an architect could look at from a WELL building standard. So I think with this, I have come to an end. This is just the tip of the iceberg, what architects could do with WELL building standards. Thank you very much for your listening. And if there are any questions, I'm willing to answer.
Questions? It's more like a comment. Everything that you're
Right.
saying here, but what about the people who are actually building it and putting the money into it? And I think that's where the biggest challenge is.
Sorry, Fancy, we can't hear you if you're asking a question.
Is it what?
Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Can't hear you, Harsha. Can't hear you, Harsha.
Okay, that's a bit strange.
I kind of agree with Fancy. So very few buildings, even though there is so much of knowledge about WELL, and there are so many, quite a few WELL APs now in the market.
Yes.
Do we have any more? Okay, great. So there's so much knowledge and information, but clients are still willing to go for WELL adherent, which means that the architects look at everything possible that they can do. They're willing to spend a little extra also, but somehow that full certification, people are still wary about. So I think the pandemic again, like Juliet was saying, that it's been horrendous 18 months, but there have been lots of positives. So a lot of things got accelerated, and I think well-being is something which will be topmost of everybody's mind.
Yes, of course. That is something that I see, because everybody wants people to come back to work, but then people are not willing to come back to work for various reasons. So there should be something that you have to do to get them back to work. And maybe these are some things. And if you actually see a lot of people, when we are homebound, a lot of them have taken to gardening.
Yeah.
So then you would have actually seen the garden grow. So that is something that you would actually do, even in your workplaces or elsewhere, wherever you are trying to do. So these are some aspects that could be put forth to the clients. Maybe you don't know it 100%, some of them are not willing to do it. But I have seen, with my experience in the market today, I have seen developers being more open to doing this more.
Yeah, I think we've seen them being open, but still, they have to see the value.
No, they do.
To some extent. And that's, I think, slowly changing.
Let me tell you, the Indian story, like when you look at energy efficiency or something, when I started way back in 1992, it took at least 6-7 years for people to understand that you had to have a VFD. I was point blank told, what does your VFD do? I can use a star delta starter. But then we have changed. It will change. And when we started with green buildings, there was an 18% difference between a conventional building and a green building. People didn't take it, but today it is a norm. It's a norm. So it will take some time for us to do it, but then it will happen.
Cost differences are coming out. See, the realization is if you have a good design building versus a well-designed building, it may not be that expensive. I think it's only the newness which gets people a little hesitant and then they try and calculate cost. Yeah. It's just the same thing with green building. Yes. Years back it was 18%, then it dropped to 12%. Then you realize there are products available which can get it to you at much less differential.
Yes. And even here, if somebody is already doing a green building, then to do anything with well is not very expensive at all. When we have calculated for developers, we have found, I can tell you that for a 3.5 million square feet of space that they were actually building, and the carpet space was about 2 million square feet, they are spending only 4 crores above their conventional green building thing. It is not, because it was calculated, because we had their consultants with us and we have written down, and the building is going to get certified soon in the next 6 months or so. So that is the kind of spend. So, people are not able to understand that the cost difference is not, the delta is very small, but, at this point of time with the pandemic, I think people will wake up. And then I think we should also rub it into them that it is important for people to really look into these things when they actually are going to design. Like as Juliet was saying that, we will have to relook at redesigning this existing spaces that we have. So I think we should look at these aspects, because ultimately it is the occupant of the building. I mean, if somebody doesn't come to work or doesn't want to come in and work in that space, it's not going to be a very nice thing for any of us.
I had a question. The aspects that you showed us, these are from the V2 standard, or because there are 7 in V1?
No, they are just split up. In air, they had the material, they moved the material out. They had the movement in something else and they moved it out. Then there is comfort, which is again air. So it's just that. It is within that only. So now V2 is standardized. They had the pilot. They have already started with the V2 standard. So it is all of them which are there. All the features that I've shown you are from the V2 standard.
Asha, you were saying something?
Yeah, sorry. Can you guys hear me now?
No, we still can't hear you.
I don't know what it is. I'm just going to leave and come back.
It's strange. I can hear you perfectly, Harsha, so I don't know if they've lost sound completely.
Oh, just a minute. Let us see if we can check it at our end.
Can you hear me as well?
No, Juliet, we are not able to hear you.
Okay, there's a problem with your sound.
Yeah, just check.
I can keep talking if you want to see if it suddenly starts working.
Hey, can you guys hear me now?
Harsha, I can hear you perfectly, but there's a problem with their sound, so they're just checking their sound now.
Technology, isn't it? And we thought we know it all.
Yeah.
Asha, I think we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
So you just did something that.
No, it's coming on the laptop.
Yeah, the thing is also understanding the value of the technology. I just wanted to ask you that question. Yeah. How many projects you usually use? We don't. The concept doesn't. No, the concept exists, but why are the furniture? Correct. It's not only about these chairs, it's also about the collaboration. And also like Sandra was saying, those lactation chairs, mothers, you gotta keep it up. Most of the time you do a lazy. Yeah, everybody just goes to somewhere, some nice furniture would be, nobody thinks. No, you gotta keep your back straight. People don't think to that extent also. It's also about things like heights. Not just chairs, it's also the heights. But you're right, we try to, the clinic space, which includes a lactation room, is like some small, and it keeps getting squeezed.
Yeah, you
Because
want
it's more of a
it.
big mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, I forgot what my question was. But I think there's a lot going on there. It looks like you guys have more questions. So
I had a question for Juliet.
go ahead, and then I'll come to it.
In India, we use ergonomics formally.
Sorry, repeat the question, sorry?
In India, we don't use formal standalone ergonomics.
It's a problem in a lot of countries. So you guys will be aware they're miles ahead of everywhere in Scandinavia. So if you go to any Scandinavian country, they're already thinking out completely outside the box and really using ergonomics as ergonomics is. And I think the problem is that the term ergonomics is completely used incorrectly. We think of ergonomics as it's a chair, it's the way scissors fit in your hand, it's the style of a pen. That's a very small part of ergonomics. You know, design of physical objects is a small part. Ergonomics really takes into account psychology. It takes into account the whole well-being of a person, but all of the aspects of the environment. You know, and that's where, you know, we sort of come in to help with other people. And you know, it's not just in India where they don't use the services of an ergonomist. And I think it's, you know, it's lovely to hear the other talk as well, kind of really focusing on, you know, who are you designing for? Because really that's the question, and that's the question that's often very difficult to answer, because you don't have time often to go in and survey everybody, but you know, you don't know what you're looking for. You know, they're people, you know, they're different heights, they're different people, but what are we really looking for? We're looking at what we call task analysis. So what are those people doing in that space, and what do they need to do it well? And you know, where do you then go from there? And when you really start looking at that, I think it would spark creativity in a very different way, because you suddenly have real aims that you want to achieve, rather than just the flow that we all know about, flow and noise and, you know, all that sort of stuff. It's much deeper than that. And yeah, unfortunately, ergonomics is very behind, as it is in Italy, but hopefully we're going to be bringing it to Italy as well. But yeah, it's a problem.
Thank you. I hope you get some calls from this group soon.
Right. I think it is all about universal design, isn't it? It is about focusing, and I liked how Sujata, you started the whole talk by asking, you designers, you think, what do I have to do with nourishment?
What he's saying is that we would be responsible.
No, completely. Get it. No, I'm saying that I love the way you questioned us by saying we don't think about nourishment. Fair enough. I never think about nourishment when I'm designing something, right? And you're right. We think about strategy. We think about ratios just because we want to, you know, sound smart, maybe. So thank you for reminding us all that. But there is still a long way for us to be able to educating our clients. See, that's where the buck stops, isn't it? You talk about these lactation rooms. I was on a project, and it's the same project, Juliet, I was talking to you about. It is in Frankfurt for a big American corporation, and we did 4 floors, some beautiful offices, right? And each floor had about 5 lactation rooms in different corners. And every time it comes down to the space. Does a lactation room really need to be that big? And someone even asked in a meeting, if they're bringing babies to the lactation room, what do they do? And you think, I could have easily sworn in that meeting, but I'm Indian and I don't swear as much. But saying that, you know, it's about educating, and sometimes it's easy. Like this project, we had 5 main leaders on the project, and 4 were women. And I can tell you that design, if you look at it today, it makes so much sense as a universal design. That's what we women bring to that table, right? So there's a lot that we need to talk about. And that brings me to your point, Juliet, where you said education. Bang on. You know, WOD, one of our pillars is education. And I know Shobha, who's in the audience there, also, you know, does a lot about educating people about these things. Because once we as designers are educated, we could educate our clients better to do these things. Because otherwise, it's all coming down to money and the square footage of the space. I heard somewhere someone said, we human beings are like rubber bands. Let this whole COVID thing die and we'll shrink back to doing what we were doing 5 years ago, right? And that's where, as designers, we step in and we say, no, we are going to redesign these spaces to meet the future and not go back, right? So I think, thank you guys. I mean, you both did a brilliant job of just reminding us. I know this was a short session, but it was just like spikes of things that we all need to remember while we're designing. And I'm sure we can have a far larger conversation on both these topics, isn't it? But I know the ladies out there are waiting for their glass of wine. I'm just to run away. So, Paul, do you want to start with the introductions and then we can let you guys get on with the games? What do you want to do?
I thought, yes, no, I think that's what we'll do. I'm going to pass the mic around. Fancy
Juliet, are you okay with the time?
between each other because a lot of us may not, or some of us may not know. Oh, okay. Do I need a mic? Can you all hear? Maybe a little bit. A little. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Nancy George. I'm a workplace consultant with I lead workplace for Thomas Associates Workplace Design. It's something we started in December of 2020. 30 years in the industry, so I can relate a lot to what was spoken about today. Okay, Sujata, thank you for bringing that terrace garden up. That was my favorite story, which you used to keep talking about in the panel, and it's still in my head. Thank you.
I'm always very uncomfortable with the mic through the mask as well. No, the mask is mandatory. No, I know. The mic is not. But I think you can hear me without the mic. I'm Shobha, and I'm an architect as well. So all of you architects, and a project manager of about 20 years of experience. And I happen to be in L&D, which is learning and development now, for this industry, and also practice consultant. And we can connect later if you want to know what that means.
Hi everyone, I'm Merlin from Symmetrics. I work as a senior designer, senior manager now there, and I'm also an architect, so this is very insightful. But like others also said, it's not that we don't want to do it, it's that we don't get the opportunity to do it. You don't need it.
Hi, so I will be the odd man out here. I'm a HR. I'm working with Symmetrics. So I'm an engineer turned professional, and I understood that my love for humans more than machines. So that's it. I'm working with Symmetrics for past 5 years. I have around 11 years experience, and I can relate all these thoughts because I'm basically an engineer. So, yes, and it's very interesting, very inspiring, Sujata. Just before the session started, I was telling her, every week I'm spending around 2,000, 3,000 to buy the plants and like elaborate my garden. So, vegetables and indoor plants, everything.
In fact, HR has a lot to a role to play in build standards.
Yes. It's very inspiring. I'm thinking of indoor plants in our office also.
There's a lot of policy changes which could actually make to make employees feel better.
Maybe not the odd one out. That's where it starts from.
Yeah.
And we have a kitchen and we have a cafeteria, so a lot of things to do here. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. We need the mic?
Yeah.
Actually, you don't need. So I've been an architect for 20 years now. I used to do a lot of architectural projects back in the day. Now, last 10 years, I've been doing just workplace design. So yes, well, in fact, I'm also going to be appearing for the WELL 18 this year. So I think it is very, very insightful what you talked about. A lot of people, clients still think that LEED certification and WELL is more or less the same thing.
They do complement each other. There's no
Yes,
doubt
yes,
about it.
yes.
They do complement a lot of crosswalks. So if you've done LEED, then you have really done about 20% of what WELL requires. So
Yes,
that's-
yes. In fact, we have Godrej as consultants for one of our projects, and the mandate that we got from them was, oh, you're doing LEED platinum, so WELL is easy. I said, well, is it WELL about more about how people perform and feel within the building more than the specs
That's
of the
the building. It's
workstations?
more
Right
of
now,
the people.
they ask the chairs, are they well certified? Well, I don't know how you can certify a chair for that. So yes, there is a lot of, I feel there is not a lot of, awareness about WELL, as especially in India. I think it's coming now. In fact, even in India, they do WELL certification now, right? The Indian Green Building Council.
Hi everybody, my name is Shukta Soni. I work with developer Kale Infra. We are building a beautiful town center called Kale Town Center. It's about a 52-acre of development. Many buildings coming up, very, very futuristic. And I'm happy to say that we are incorporating most of the standards, like, there's abundance of landscaping space there, designed by Logic from Europe. Buildings are designed by UN Studio. Very, very good looking buildings, very, very futuristic, where I believe people will not put down the blinds.
Yeah.
Only one aspect which I think is a part of brings all gender toilets. Last year, we changed all the toilets design, which basically, I had the interior design vertical. So as much input I have to give, I will give. So what I did, I changed all the toilets from door entry to indirect entry. Change the layout like at airports, you don't see the inside of the toilet. Most of the tenants who have taken those buildings, coming and putting the doors. So even the best of clients like BD, Resource Pro, those who have taken the floors, I said, why? I mean, you don't see anything there inside when you're in the corridor. Why are you putting the doors? No, our people are not comfortable. And I'm really thinking, I'm excited for to introduce this all gender toilet. But how will our tenants,
You don't have to have all of them all gender, and you should at least provide for a few.
provide for that. Yeah.
You should at least provide
There
for
are
one in the building.
There are companies.
but most of the clients will not accept. They say, oh, your building doesn't have a male female toilet.
you
I
could
can't
have
make
one
it
in
a
every
so
And in addition.
in addition, but I'm even excited that all floors could have all gender toilets. Why not?
Yeah, sometime in the future.
Yeah. Like in airports, now we've stopped that, some of the cabin checking of the females. There was a survey where females said, I'm okay to get, scan in the open. Big deal. So that's the change that we can see going forward.
Yeah, that is a big underlying.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Devanshi. I work for ANSR and I lead their design vertical. And I am currently working with your project at the moment. And it's interesting that you brought up about, I'm recently an AP as well. And all gender toiletry, we are actually doing that. We are actually doing it for one of the floors and we are trying to incorporate this change. It's an educational change, absolutely. But the only way that it can happen is that if you go one step at a time, so Sujata, I completely agree with you. Everything doesn't have to be that way to begin with, but we're going to experiment that in our spaces. We're going to get some surveys done, we're going to get some data statistics around how clients are accepting it, and then we're going to move forward with it. But absolutely, we are moving in that direction. So I think that is a very positive approach. Carla is doing a great job on, the facility of how they are building the building and stuff. So I think I'm really looking forward to a positive change across the board. Maybe not immediately, but at least in the next 5 years. Just like these also took a good 5-7 years, we really saw something.
No, it took more than that.
I
think with the government said we'll give you 5% extra FAR if you're a green building, and then everybody wanted to have a green building.
And you know what, there's another point to that. So as a we are a developer of sorts. So I can talk about the fact that why there is resistance to well certification, even though I am a well certified professional. One of the reasons is that the cost of it, the cost of the certification itself. It is not to do with the materials because we are adhering to pretty much everything. But the whole cost comes into play because at some point developers have to lease it out, they have to get the ROI, and it doesn't work when it's just a design oriented space. So somewhere this, once the cost starts dropping, and it's come to India now, so it will start dropping, I'm pretty sure everybody is going to insist on at least 50% of the projects will be well certified. So looking forward to that. Yeah.
I definitely need to when we voice of this in action. I'm an architect by profession, practicing interior designing as design consultants. I've worked with fancy for like years, decades. So yeah, I connect to all of these topics which you all are talking about. So I've been in touch with a lot of corporate clients, and they are now, after this pandemic, I think they are focusing on well certification more than earlier, because now they want their employees to come back, and probably the employees want to like feel safe in the environment. So now we are checking about it, like what is a well certification. So we've done that for Goldman Sachs recently, which happened before pandemic. But it wasn't like a trend at that time. But now I think clients are checking about it. In fact, we've almost done the interiors of one of the projects, and now we are asking for a gap analysis. That how can we get to a well certification? Probably after that, cost comes into the picture, and we might not go for it, but at least they are getting thinking about it. Yeah. And of course, the mothers too. I think I am a new mother. I have a child, she's 3 years now. So I can totally understand what happens in a mother's room and how the male designers think about it, because they really don't think about it. So we are the ones who ask what happens. What happens? Don't even ask. They're like, we're just assuming that there are babies coming into a mother's room and what happens there. So yeah, that was a good topic. I learned that part. Yeah, and yeah, of course, the diversity and the inclusivity factor is also coming in. I think a lot of clients are now getting, they are getting aware of it. They are imbibing all of this. And I think we're glad that it's happening at this point of time in most of the projects. And we're part of it.
Goldman Sachs, just to share, that was one of, as a service provider, the question was, if your product is not well certified, you don't want your service.
No, they couldn't have said.
No, yeah.
Who
said that?
Who said that?
Is that getting recorded? You'll be fired.
Education started. Lead. Okay, so they do.
So because that was the first project that I got certification for that. And also because Goldman Sachs, I mean the owners of Delos or something are all ex-Goldman Sachs.
Yeah.
But then you need to have that one example for the rest to follow.
Correct.
Once they did it, then people started.
They don't like you what exactly. They came up to the last one. So you don't really have those education of what exactly the meaning of. That's right. Then, as you said, if we do well, that also started. So we were quite happy that great. Companies could provide them those contribution points. Yes, we could do, and they could get those points from there. And it was also Goldman Sachs that said we want employees to go away all the way down. You have to go from one block to the other block. So that was quite educated and people knew about it. It was such a big project that everybody talked about it. Until it was only lead.
We only worked 4 years on that. Only 4 years.
Hi, this is Rima Bhandari. I'm from Enmoser Associates. So I started my career almost with them. And it's been 10 years now. I'm an architect by profession. And throughout these 10 years, I have different hats. I have been a workplace strategist, I have been a project leader, and now I'm heading a team of 25 people as a business unit head, responsible for the end of this organization. I feel always so excited when we have women leading
the organization, the projects. I've seen most of the projects, at least with whatever limited experience I have, are more successful when there's a woman and the leader is a woman. So whatever concept we just discussed, I see most of our clients being very, very thoughtful about creating spaces for people. It's not just to get the ROI, it's not just about the perspective budget. And it also gives that click in the belly that we're doing something right. We're doing something right for the next generation, for the people, and what are the different concepts that we can basically share, which is not known or not yet established or done by people, but it's all for the as an outcome, it's all for the well-being of the people. So yeah, we've done a couple of projects in India which are LEED certified, which are well certified, which are in the process of getting well certified this year. And the journey is amazing. And I don't know why, but most of the projects that I have been part of, I've been dealing with women who are leading these thought processes, and it's so satisfying to be part of that journey where we're seeing things are changing in our people. Great.
Hi everyone, my name is Varsha. I'm the senior architect working for Arts and Architecture. So when it comes to well, I'm actually taking my well PP exam in 20 days, but I'm really not prepared.
She wants to take version one, right? She wants to take
I
version
was
one,
like
right?
very excited when it was, I had a speaker talking about well. So I will still appear for the exam, but it will just be like a trial for me. I have like no time to actually prepare for it. So why well, basically I'm working on two Google projects, one in Gurgaon and one in Bangalore. And Google spends so much money. First square foot they spend about 9,000. That's like really great budget to work with. But they never really went for WELL certification or LEED certification or anything related to sustainability. But post-pandemic, it's a good thing that they've started the topic. They have a sustainability practice which is in place, and that's a good pointer. That's a good change to see post-pandemic and where they're heading. And we've been working with clients like Unilever, which never spend on well-being. Even in terms of ergonomics, right? They used to go for China-made furniture. So post-pandemic, they have incorporated well in their scheme. So which is a good turn, I would say, in terms of where they're heading. So yeah, that's a thing.
I think companies have realized to some extent that wellness is not spa, so it's moved from there. But if you see, like when people have to buy the gym equipment for a facility, they would ask somebody who is actually a gymmer to give the things. They don't go like how Juliet is, who spoke about posture, who spoke about exercise and nutrition. That is not considered when you're actually putting in a gym into a facility, and that is what they should be doing.
We still have one intro left, and I was going to ask Harsha and Juliet if they want to leave because they've been here for two hours plus now. We made them wait at least half an hour before we started.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'm just feeling jealous that I can't be there, but I just wanted to
go into a freewheeling discussion now.
It seems like that's what I told, because Juliet had to leave, guys, but she said thank you because she had a client meeting, and I said this was supposed to be an introduction, but it started almost like a discussion now. So that's all right. You guys all enjoy yourselves. Thank you once again, and hopefully I'll get to see you all in person very soon. So have a lovely evening, guys, and thank you once again.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Arpita. I have occupied sales professional field. I've recently moved to Bangalore, so a lot of new places for me. In the context of this meeting, I also had project management sales professional and why I'm also here. There are a lot of architects here, and I was thinking, what should I say? I think the last time I drew a straight line on paper was probably when I was giving my geometry exams. I never again. So while my role is to sell workplace strategy and design, I think I can't do much of it on paper. But yeah, I think two good conversations or things that as I was hearing that we're working on very. One, I think somebody brought the subject of awareness. I think after COVID or post-COVID, obviously, a lot of it has accelerated the intent of corporates to move towards a lot of well-rated aspects. And when we talk about design trends, it's one of the key things that we talk about. But they still don't understand that there is a well certification available. In everyone's mind, they want to take care of wellness of their employees and they want to do something about it. But I think education about that subject or general education about that everywhere, education more in terms of information about it would help everyone. I think Devanshi brought up the subject of cost, and I was thinking about that because at the end of the day, all it just boils down to people, right? We all want to do the right thing, but it has to make sense about commercial. Yeah, I think that's it. That was about my 2 minutes on whatever little I heard. Thanks.
Welcome to Bangalore.
Oh,
No, I was saying welcome to Bangalore.